please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to thank everyone for attending this evening. All board members, with the exception of Mike Murray, are present. I'd like to appoint a temporary chair. If there's no objections, or treasurer, clerk, I'd like to appoint Tom Anderson. Seeing no objections, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Next on the agenda, we have the approval for the agenda. Is there anyone that would like to make changes? Yes, Tom.
I'd like to amend the agenda and under the new business, the student registration process for the sixth period day. I'd like to change that to one read instead of the first and second read. And so after presentation, we vote on it tonight. This would give the administration a longer period of time to get the handbook ready for next school year.
Okay. Any objections to the motion?
Need a second.
I need a second by Stacy. Any other changes to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. On tonight's consent agenda, we have the check wire transfer disbursement summary, bank reconciliation statements for October, resignations and terminations and non-renewals. We have donations of $255 from the Wells Fargo Community Support Campaign from Loretta Spurley, Breon Silman, and Marla Sgesme to the Prior Lake High School, and $750 grant from the American Birkebeiner Young Skier Development Program to Five Hawks. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
By Tom, second by Lee. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. And we are on time for the Five Hawks Laker Showcase. Mr. Bell.
Thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be here. To thank the teachers and the 5 students that are behind me there. We're going to be 6, but one of them decided that he had too much Thanksgiving fun and got the flu today, so he doesn't get to be with us. One of the hardest parts about doing the Laker Showcase is to decide what we're going to do. I mean, we had things like our Plus program, Kindergarten Live. We're disappearing.
I don't know.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom obstacle course. Is that Oz back there? Our readers group, RTI lessons, food drive, our organics program. But we decided that perfect timing to be at the end of November, and our 5th grade just got back from their Wolf Ridge trip, and we've been dying to have a chance to present this to you for years. So here we are. And a little bit of an ironic twist for tonight. Normally, I get to stand up here and talk about the academics. They're going to. What I get to tell you just a little bit about is how different they are after a week. They leave trudging out the door saying, whoa, we're going to have so much fun. They come back saying, I learned so much. This is what and Mom, can I go to McDonald's? You know, we'll always have that. But when they come back, they have learned valuable lessons on teamwork, the value of effort, conservation. What I give to a group is what I get back. And I think probably the two most important things is that their level of confidence it's visibly increased, and they get to come back and say, I didn't know if I could do it or not, but I did. So enough of me talking, and I'm excited to introduce 5 fabulous Five Hawks 5th graders. And they're going to tell you who they are. They practice this part. Who's got it first?
We have technical difficulty.
I'm Braden Bissell.
During this natural history class, we had to prove ourselves worthy of becoming a Voyager, and we got to role play as the Northwest Company Voyagers. And we got to put on these big heavy backpacks, which were really heavy. We hiked all the way down to Wolf Lake. Once there, we got in a canoe and canoed all the way to our little campsite. Once we got there, we put all our stuff down. And we started some campfires with flint and steel. We played some games, which were really fun. We cooked some pancake-type things, and we made some tea. We learned how to make tent stakes with a sharp metal rod and a little clamp on a stick, and you kind of pull it like that to make it sharp. And then at the end of our class, we canoed back and hiked back to our classroom. The question we came up with was, who were the rivals of the Northwest Company? Viva la Company! Huzzah!
Anybody have an answer? Then you might have to tell.
Right. The answer is the Hudson Bay Company. Stinking pig dogs, patooey.
I'm Hope Layton. I did a class called Ojibwe Heritage. It was a natural history class. We made rice, tea, and we started campfires. We made the fire by putting birch bark, twine, and char cloth on a pan, and then you took a sharp edge and a rock and you rubbed it together, and if you were lucky it would spark and it would start smoking, and you'd bring it over to the fire pit and you'd blow into it, and that's what would make the fire. We also made wood strips for the basket weaving, and you did that by soaking the log in the water, and you bring it over to the stand and you'd hit it with a little hammer and it would start dripping, and that's what made it easy for peeling it. We also got to create our Ojibwe names, and you did that, and it had to mean something to you, and it had to do something with nature or an animal. The question we came up with was, how did the Ojibwe Indians break open the shell of rice? The answer is they danced on it.
My name's William. How are you? At Wolf Ridge, I attended a class called Beavers. It was an ecology class. We learned about beavers' adaptations like their webbed feet and tail for swimming. We had to hike down about 300 steps on the stairs of doom, as I like to call it. We hiked along Sawmill Creek and looked for beaver signs like chews and dregs. The chews is the stump that they chew from to take the lumber to their lodge or the dam. And the dregs is the path they drag the wood to get to the creek and make the dam and the lodge. We visited the beaver dam and the beaver lodge. The lodge is where pretty much all of the beavers lived, and the dam was about as tall as me and about 100 feet long. So that was pretty cool. If we were lucky, we saw some beavers. I saw about 4 beavers. That was pretty cool because I had never ever seen a beaver before in real life. And this is the question: what do beavers store in their tail during the winter?
Fat.
That's correct.
William, was the stairs of doom going down or coming back up?
Both.
I'm Madison Landberg, and I am filling in for Tony because unfortunately he has the flu. This class I also attended. It was a Superior View hike, and it's an ecology class. We learned about the ecology of the Superior View of Superior Lake and the importance of the freshwater. we hiked to the Lake Superior Lookout, and it was about 3 miles, 1.5 miles there, and 1.5 miles back. And we identified landmarks and resources, and here's the question we came up with. Lake Superior contains what percent of the Earth's fresh water?
I'll try 25%.
It's actually 10%. I'm Madison Lambert again. Now I'm doing the next slide. And we did rock climbing. It was one of my favorite classes. We learned how to belay, which is keeping your rock climbing partner up and down the rock wall safely. We climbed to or past our goals. We made goals, and it was very important to our instructor. And we encouraged others and helped them go to or past their goals too. And you may have had an opportunity to kiss the goat. It was stuffed, of course, and I unfortunately did not get to kiss the goat. I really wanted to, but I didn't. And my question is, how do you help your climbing partner reach their goal? The answer is with encouragement.
My name is Madison Dorval, and I took the course about the ropes course. And we got to learn how to be a ground partner, which was encouraging your partner to complete the part of the goal, the part of the course that scared them. We got to encourage our partners to step beyond their fears and complete the course and get to go down the zip line, which everybody wanted to do. We learned that self-confidence was the most important thing. We had to push ourselves to do what we wanted to. The ropes course was 25 feet off the ground, so when we were on the single wire walking across, you had to remember that all the wires held at least 5,000 pounds or a large truck. What is at the end of the ropes course?
The ground?
Yes, and there's also a zip line.
This is what everybody looked like after we got done with Wolf Ridge and we were on the bus ride home. Because we were all exhausted! Any questions?
Sure, I'll take. Did any of you get to taste the aspen tree?
Yes.
And what did it taste like?
It tasted like medicine.
It tasted aspirin.
And that's how they invented aspirin.
One question. Did anybody go to, I forgot the name of it, Chickadee? Did they have that, feeding
Chickadee
the bird?
Corner?
Chickadee
Landing?
Chickadee
Okay,
Landing, yeah. Any
Well, I kind of did. In the GPS and geocache class, one of the checkpoints was over there, and we were kind of getting freaked out by all the clothes that were hanging on posts over there. So we were heading back, and then we stopped, and then there were 5 deer over in the woods just staring at us. And then as we were looking at them, we're kind of going, whoa. We saw the next checkpoint, so we were like, oh, sweet.
He's calm.
What surprised you about the trip that you didn't think you would happen that really did?
I think that there's a zip line at the end of the ropes course.
Nobody figured that. We also got to see beavers, so.
Being 25 feet off the ground, hanging by technically 2 ropes. Ooh, beavers.
When you got to the zip line, did you sit down and just fall off, or did you run off?
I ran.
You got the choice. I ran off.
Okay.
I ran.
Running's awesome.
And all I ever hear about is the food really that bad?
No, it's really good. No, there was this one meal that had whole wheat bread, and that was just.
And I'm glad that their chicken wasn't breaded.
Oh yeah.
I like their chicken. It was good. Good chicken.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us and for letting us brag a little bit. And I do want to thank Mr. Bodette, Mr. Ayers, and Ms. Fisher for helping put all of this together. Thank you very much.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have open forum. This is an opportunity for residents of our community to address the board on issues not on the agenda. Is there anyone that would like to address the board this evening? Seeing no one, we'll move on to personnel.
All right. First, I'm recommending the following candidates for employment, and I'm seeking board approval.
Motion to approve the candidates for employment.
So moved.
By Todd, second by Stacy. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0.
And secondly, I'm presenting the following leaves of absence, and I'm seeking board approval.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the leave of absences as presented?
So moved.
By Tom, second by Rich. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Thank you. We have no old business, so we'll move on to new business, which is the high school and middle school synergy report. And Mr. Daggett and Ms. Toller.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Angela Teller. I am the Synergy Middle School Coordinator, and I'm here to tell you what we're doing this year. First off, I started the year with a survey with students. We're in, as you may have known, the third year of our transition year for middle school advanced programming. And I asked the students, what do you want to do? There's an effective primetime enrichment. We do feel it is important for the Synergy students to get together and do some enrichment activities they choose, and to create a safe environment where they can participate in activities or questions or quests that they particularly enjoy. So I gave them a survey and asked, okay, what are you interested in? I have things I can do. And they told me several of the things, as you see on the screen: stock market game, book clubs, career investigation, strategy games, just to start with a few. So I created a calendar. And as you also know, we're moving away from pulling out at the middle level for enrichment because they were missing class time, and it was frustrating for students, parents, and staff as well too. So this effective primetime enrichment only happens during their prime time, which is the 22-minute period before or after lunch, used as a study hall or a quiet read. So if they choose to participate in those activities, those are the activities they're giving up. Part of my job this year also is, instead of pulling out for enrichment, I am teaming with the advanced teachers at the middle level, and to help create academic rigor and deepen within the content area. Some of the things I've done, I've worked with 6th grade advanced math, language arts. 7th grade, I'm just starting to work with the geography. 8th grade, I've been in with advanced math and language arts as well. One of the activities I enjoyed 2 weeks ago was to create, if you're familiar with the advanced language arts, they have a word masters list. That's something you might have been familiar with. They have 20 words or 25 words to memorize within a month and a half, and they have to understand the meaning. But what's difficult with word masters is they need to understand the word because their test is in the form of analogies. It's not just match the definition. So one of the teachers asked me, okay, I need to review in my class. Can you come up with some ideas? And absolutely, if you're familiar with cranium, we brought that into the classroom. The only thing we didn't have students do was sing. We thought that might be a little awkward. But my job was to have them get into teams, and they rolled a die, and they either had to shape the word, act out the word, or draw the word. And it was interesting to watch these advanced students work, because how do you shape an adjective? It's real easy to draw a noun or act out something like that, but they really got their creative juices going, so that was one personal story I wanted to share with you. As you can see, the academic enrichment I've listed above, these are some, well, the Optimist Club oratorical contest is not new, but that's something we're going to provide with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. The top two you see there are two new things that we're going to do. History Day, we are going to work with the 8th grade advanced history class. It fits in nicely with their curriculum. If you're not familiar with History Day, I just attended 3 workshops. It is phenomenal. It's project-based learning, and there's a theme, and the students choose their own topic within the theme. The theme this year is revolution, reaction, and reform. So it's very broad, and the students can take that anywhere they want to, tying in with the theme. They conduct extensive research using primary and secondary resources. They go to libraries, archives, museums. They interview people, as well as they can visit historical sites. It teaches them to analyze and interpret and draw conclusions. What does this mean? And then they're able to present their findings in a variety of ways. They can write a research paper. They can present an exhibit board. They can perform a skit, write a script and perform it. They can create a documentary video, or they can create a website. So once again, just providing all those options for students will be great. Right along with History Day, there's a new thing called World Savvy, which is only offered in 3 cities in the United States right now. San Francisco, New York, and Minneapolis, and the Twin Cities just came on board a few years ago. And World Savvy prides themselves in trying to create 21st century problem solvers. And what they do is they also, right along with History Day, is they have a theme, and students choose a topic within that theme, and they, much like the History Day, they're analyzing, they're researching, and they also get to present their findings in a variety of ways. The World Savvy Challenge takes place in March. I should also mention History Day, it's a competitive, they're both very competitive, meaning that students can, we're going to have all students make projects, but then we're going to see which students choose to move on, that want to pursue this further and compete at the regional level and maybe move on to the national level. With World Savvy, their theme is sustainable communities, and what's different about this one is they choose a topic within that theme, and they must research it at the local level, the national level, and the global level. And they also really work on creative problem solving. The challenge day for World Savvy takes place at Macalester College, and one of the first things they do when they get there, I've been told, is students form new teams with other students participating in the World Savvy Challenge. They have judges in the room, and they get presented a new problem. And then as a new group of students who just recently have met, they already are creatively solving problems that are presented to them. And I was told that's a highlight by the World Savvy trainers. And they're coming to our school actually this week, Wednesday, to work with both middle schools there. So those are some of the academic enrichments that are taking place. I'm working at both schools. I'm trying to touch base with students during prime time and whatnot. And you can see I'm in the classrooms at both middle schools. I'm really enjoying it. Didn't present a lot of information on here. Any questions that I could answer? If not, I have 2 experts I could also go to. Any questions at the middle level? What's going on?
Just
Go ahead,
just a logistical one.
Sure.
I mean, you mentioned that Synergy used to be something that was a pullout.
Yes.
And I experienced that frustration myself, and my children did too. And now you're doing it on prime time?
Right.
And is that working?
It
well?
is. I created a calendar, and it is. Oh, they're having a great time. We're doing the stock market game, and it's always fun because you have those that are really enjoying it right now, and those that are, what are your initials? Let's put them in and see if they're a ticker symbol. So there's some that are taking it a little more seriously, and others that are just having fun with it as well. Absolutely, they get to choose when they come down. And I've had students, oh, I really want to come today, but I've got a project I need to work on. That's all right. I don't require them to come out. Yeah, only the effective, more the social emotional pieces during prime time. But otherwise, I'm going into the classrooms working with these different activities that you see here.
Okay.
Does that clarify? Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Jared Daggett, and I'm the Synergy Coordinator at the high school. This is my 3rd year here in Prior Lake Savage Area Schools, and I'm a social studies teacher. I'm passing out, or I'm having you all receive just kind of a brief summary of the Synergy program at the high school. As my colleague said, the Synergy program has been in a state of flux for the last few years, and so it is changing, and I'm hoping that this will give you a good idea of how it's changing, hopefully for the better. Currently, there are 208 identified gifted and talented students that are on my list as Synergy students. That doesn't mean that all of them participate, not all of them want to, not all of them are able to, and so we'll kind of talk about that a little bit. But as you see, most of those students are freshmen and sophomores this year. Throughout the course of my time here at the high school, I have worked with approximately a third of those students in a classroom setting, so I know a lot of them, which has allowed me to kind of build trust and relationship with those students. That has helped me as the Synergy coordinator. At the high school, we've also focused mostly on addressing the socio-emotional needs of the gifted and talented students. As you are all aware, we have a lot of advanced programming and a lot of advanced options, and so if our students are placed appropriately, they're getting all of the rigor that they need in their classes, and they don't want and they don't need extra work outside of that. And in getting to know my students, that's what I've gleaned from our interactions, that they don't need a lot of extra stuff, but they want someone who is there as a resource and someone who's there who understands them, and so that's where I come in. Currently, I'm offering bi-monthly meetings. The schedule is posted on my website. Every other Wednesday each month, I have meetings in my classroom where students can come in. Currently, it's only during third hour, but students can come in and I've got different activities and different things that allow the students to interact with their peers on a kind of an informal basis, but still allows them to flex their mental muscle and do something creative and something different. I've also spoken with Andy Franklin, the coach of the high school Knowledge Bowl team, and he has allowed me to create a team of Synergy students who don't want to participate in Knowledge Bowl officially, but who would like to at least do something where they can go and interact and kind of do all those sort of fun things. And so hopefully we can get started with having some kids participate in that. There has been interest in that. Also, I am available, and I have. Last year I was the coordinator or the moderator for a few different Synergy spin-off groups. There was a philosophy club that met twice a week in my classroom before school, and they discussed whatever their brains could come up with, and it was a very wide-ranging, interesting topic base. But as necessary and as needed, I am available to have some of those spin-off groups under my watchful eye. Currently, there are a few challenges that I've been dealing with. The first is my schedule. Synergy, I have one Synergy hour throughout the day. Currently, after working with the administration, with Mr. Lund and Mr. Policki, my Synergy hour was placed over third hour, which has 2 of the lunch hours in it, and so I'm able to meet with those students who have third hour lunch currently. Mr. Policki has been gracious enough to work with me, and next semester I'll have my Synergy hour and my prep hour over third and fourth hours, so I should be able to meet with every Synergy student in the building who's interested. So that's been great, and I'm hoping that we can continue doing that in the future. There again, it seems the most effective and efficient way to meet with students without having to pull them out of class, because that doesn't help anybody. Communication has been difficult. I don't have access to Skyward, to the student information, but working with the guidance office, I have been given parent contact information, so I've been able to email every Synergy parent at the high school, and I've started creating an email contact list with the students so that I can contact them directly and make sure that they are advocating for themselves and they know where they can go if they have any questions or issues. Synergy student schedules, like I said, currently I only have that third hour, so if a student has lunch during fourth hour, they can't come and talk to me during those Synergy hours, but I have made it clear to everyone that I'm also available before school and after school, so if there's something that they really need, they can come and find me that way. In addition to what we're currently doing, I, in the future, would like to offer other options for programming and activities. I'd like to get some sort of community involvement, both from the community coming and talking to the students and from the students participating in the community. I use the word internships, but really maybe just job shadowing or something where the students who are motivated could go out and see what possibilities there are in the community, what they might be interested in doing after college, or after high school and after college. And I'd also like to see volunteer opportunities for us to give back to the community as much as we can. I'd like to see the meeting schedule expand. I've started off very small and very modest in order to really kind of grow things grassroots, get the students in that routine of every other Wednesday, they've got a meeting, and then build it from there. So crawl, walk, run before we get going too much. Other activities, I'd like to see a mentorship program within the Synergy program, the seniors and the upperclassmen talking to the freshmen and sophomores, and even the students at the middle school, so that we can kind of build up that community and that feeling of involvement between the two buildings. I'd like to do college preparation and application seminars and things where we can get people who have applied, or maybe even we could get application people from colleges to come in and talk to our students who are interested in going to college, to let them know what they need to do and what they're looking for, so that we can really get them into those top-notch schools that they want to go to. And I'd also like to have scheduling help, where students can take a look at their schedules, what they've done at the high school, what they still need to do to graduate, so that we can make sure that they're getting into the right classes, just to kind of help out the guidance office, especially with all of the other changes that are going on. So I've really enjoyed working with these students, and I hope to be able to continue working with them in the future. So we're just trying to keep building things up. Right now I'm working with the students that do meet with me regularly to build up grassroots interest with their peers that I maybe haven't been able to get in touch with, or those who haven't participated in the past and who would like to now. So, are there any questions?
Your bi-monthly meetings?
Yes.
How many students attend those meetings?
Right now, we're probably at about 10 for each of the lunch periods, so about 20 overall. It is growing, and unfortunately, I still haven't been able to get into contact with every student, but we are working on, like I said, building up, telling their peers, hey, why don't you come here? You know, we can kind of do some of that, and part of that goes back to building the relationships with the students and getting them to trust me and know that I'm there for them. And when I was offered this position, the focus that I was given was to focus on being a resource for the students. So all of these other things I'm doing are trying to go above and beyond that initial charge. I have helped a lot of students work on PSEO applications and other things like that, and so I'm hoping to really build that community of gifted and talented students within our building that feel comfortable with one another and know that I'm there for whatever they may need, academic or otherwise.
What are you hearing from your Synergy students about the transition from the 7th period day to the 6th period day? Any specific
Nothing
insights?
specifically. I know that obviously the seniors have a lot more options because they've gotten a lot of the electives already done and out of the way, so there's not as much stress there, but I do know that a lot of the underclassmen have been struggling to find things that will fit into their schedule that they're interested in as well. But in general, I feel like they feel that it's gone about as smoothly as it can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe either you or Mr. Lund, this got a lot of attention as we started redesigning it a couple of years ago. What's been the feedback from the parents, SPAN, some of the folks that have talked about it, maybe some of the key aspects that are different from the old program that we had?
No, I've worked very closely with Lisa Garborg and April Henry of the SPAN committee. They've been very supportive of what we're trying to do and what we have done. I haven't heard any.
No, neither have I. Sponsoring you to a workshop, the SPAN parents are sponsoring Mr. Daggett.
I already went.
Already went.
Yep.
To a Synergy workshop just about a month ago.
Yep.
And so very little.
Yep. Also, I've spoken with Sarah Murr from the middle schools, and so we've been very much on the same page with what we want to do and what we think and feel is important for our gifted and talented students. So if there's been anything negative, I haven't heard it. And I'm assuming I would.
Neither have I.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have new course proposal. Mr. Ulrich. Or Mr. Holmberg.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Gruber. I'm here to introduce Steve Ulrich, who's our industrial technology teacher at the high school and also at the middle school. He is here tonight to present for your review and approval a new course that we would like to offer next year in the high school. It aligns with our Project Lead the Way courses from the middle school and is another offering. This presentation has gone before the District Curriculum Advisory Committee, and it has their full support and is here for you tonight for review and questions that you may have of Mr. Ulrich as he goes through this presentation. With that, I'll turn it over to him.
Good evening, everybody. See if I can handle the technology here. I understand that you've already been given a complete overview of the curriculum, a complete overview of the goals, objectives, and the standards that are embedded in this Project Lead the Way course offering. So stop me at any time as I go through this if you have questions related to the information that I'm going over. But it's my goal just to give you a quick overview so that perhaps you can highlight a few things that are central to the course and give you an opportunity to question me about those. This is an entry-level curriculum for Project Lead the Way. There are no prerequisites. You don't have to take the middle school Gateway to Technology program. You don't have to take the Introduction to Engineering and Design program that we offer at the high school. So it is an entry-level class. It is designed for grades 9 through 12. 175 instructional days per course, and like the other Project Lead the Way offerings that you may be familiar with, it is a very well developed national curriculum that embeds standards in mathematics and science and technology, as well as providing kids with an opportunity to develop skills with relevant technologies and do some career exploration in the process of meeting the objectives of the course. The Introduction to Engineering Design is currently offered, and the Civil Engineering and Architecture course is the one that I'm talking about. Other courses that Project Lead the Way has available would be Principles of Engineering, Digital Electronics, Aerospace Engineering, Biotechnology, and so forth. It is a goal to get some of the upper level classes into the curriculum at the secondary level as well. But that's an ongoing effort, and I'll be in front of you again, I assume, within the next year or so to talk about next steps beyond the introductory level classes. Key concepts, there are 4 major units. It's designed to be a year-long program. We will split it into 2 semester-length classes so that it fits our scheduling better at the high school, just as we did the Introduction to Engineering and Design. So it shows up as 2 semester-length classes, but that allows us to split them to offer them at different times of the day, or for students to take the first half of it one year and the second half of it another, so that it conforms with their schedules a little more easily. The key concepts in Unit 1 would be a history of architecture, and it begins much the way that we began traditional industrial technology architectural courses, with an overview of the elements of design, how architecture has evolved throughout the ages, from the colonial days to the present architectural styles that you'll find around us in our community. We look at design elements and considerations, interviewing your clients perhaps to find out what their needs are, what their wants are, so that you can put together a list of goals. So you provide them with a design that meets their needs as well as some of their wants. Some of their wants might be limited by budget constraints, but you certainly want to address the primary needs, places to prepare food, sleep, entertain, and so forth. And your wants may include a wood shop or dark room or whatever else might come to mind. We're looking at careers, and that's beyond just architecture as a career, but we're looking at construction management, interior design, landscape architecture, civil engineering. There's a wide variety of careers that are related to the construction of residential or light commercial or facilities like this as well. So the students will have an opportunity to explore different career options and report on programs that they could attend at the post-secondary level that would prepare them for careers related to plumbing or electrical or construction or architecture or whatever it might be that supports their interests. Project examples in this first unit would include an introduction to Revit architecture, which is 3-dimensional computer-aided drafting software. And the Autodesk Corporation, which is the company that has brought forward AutoCAD, which has been the industry standard for 20 years or so, has put their development efforts into Revit, which is a 3-dimensional design program. So in a facility like this, you would choose the platform, the basic platform, whether it's residential or commercial. And in choosing that basic platform, you'd be given an alphabet or a family of different wall styles and things that would be available that would be typically found in these kinds of construction projects. So in a residential design, you might take siding on 2x6 studs, or you might take a brick on 2x6 studs, for instance. And as the students then draw the floor plan, the program is building the walls by elevation as well as looking down on the plan view. So you can add floors of varying materials and add ceilings of varying materials, put in your lighting, put a roof on it, put in your foundations and slice the house, and then transport all of those files into the two-dimensional views that you may be more familiar with, that come with the blueprints that you would see in a construction process. But the process is three-dimensional. You can walk through the structure and create animations and show people with rendered views of the boardroom or the kitchen or the bathroom or whatever might be of interest to the client. Okay? So that introduction to Revit architecture in this first unit, it focuses on simplistic design. So there's a small structure in the upper right corner of the slide right there that might be a cabin or a two-bedroom kind of a concept, just to acquaint them with the three-dimensional nature of the software and how to edit and construct with the software. Okay. The second unit focuses on residential design and takes what they have discovered or what they've learned about the Revit architectural package and puts it into a project of greater scope. So they would be given goals, no less than 3 bedrooms, no more than 4. So a 3 or 4 bedroom home with 2 or 3 baths with perhaps no more than 3,000 square feet, and they would be given the freedom to create ranch-style homes or 2-story homes or story-and-a-half homes or whatever type, 4-level split levels or whatever type of home they're interested in, as long as it meets the general budget constraints that would be associated with the square footage of the home that they're doing. They're going to be doing individual projects, so they've learned how to use the basic tools of the software, and now they can use those tools to construct designs that reflect their own interests or perhaps the interests of their families. There's a unit on renovations and additions. When we built our home, we left the lower level of our house unfinished, and it's fairly typical that people build homes without decks and patios and without the lower level finished so that they can get into the home a little more affordably. And some of my students in the past have developed the plans to remodel basements or to finish basements in the first place, or to remodel a kitchen, or to add a patio or add a deck or whatever it might be, whatever they might need at home. Renovations and additions are a major part of the construction and architectural industry around us right now, as it become increasingly more difficult for people to just jump into a house. So they're buying fix-me-uppers, or they're expanding their existing homes as their families grow. Decks and patios, of course, as a part of that. This would finish out the first semester's worth of curriculum. Okay, so there's the overview, developing the history and the background with architecture and design, and then there's the introduction to the software, then evolving into individual design challenges and projects. Their presentations then would follow that, where they would share rendered views of their homes and floor plans and things with their peers or with the community. I was involved in the Minnesota Technology Challenge for many years, where we had panels of architects that would look at student projects and critique them. So perhaps we can get some architects to come in at this point in time to look at the individual plans of the students and give them some feedback on the traffic patterns, or the size of rooms, or the materials they've chosen to use, or color schemes, or the roof, or aesthetics from the curb, or whatever it might be. The third and fourth quarters would be the second semester of the class, and the third unit, or unit 3, looks at light commercial design and construction. So if you were to give the students a project where they had to design a strip mall, for instance, which is a project that I've used in the past for Architectural 2 students. Oh, and by the way, this class would replace what we currently have in the books for semester-length classes in Architecture 1 and 2. So we would combine those so that we're giving kids the same information and background that we used to give them in those semester-length classes, but in a little more, a little better developed curriculum that embeds standards that weren't present in some of our earlier offerings. Land use, commercial building systems, structural analysis and design, site design, those would all be elements that would have to be taken into consideration if you were doing a strip mall. So perhaps you've got a team of 8 students and you've got a plot that they have to choose from some location on Google Earth or some location in the community, and they have to decide where are we going to put parking, how are we going to drain rainwater or snow melt, or how are we going to work together to design a uniform facade for the facilities. So you may have students that are responsible for each of the different units that might be part of the strip mall or the cornerstone for the strip mall, but the outside has to be contiguous and aesthetic, so they'll have to work together in teams to accomplish that goal. The software allows students to do individual designs or to do kind of a collaborative effort by using kind of an electronic library approach, so that students can check out and work on different elements or floors of a major project, and then others would be able to see what has happened but unable to make changes until it's checked back in. And then you can see how someone's first floor aligns with someone's second floor, or how different structures align in a row. So they have the freedom and the ability to design different components and then go back and look at the master that has all of the different components aligned and pulled together. Projects in there would include beam or truss design, renovations, additions again, decks and patios, like what am I trying to say, Panera, for instance. Okay, you might go down to Panera and sit outside to have coffee and pastry or something. So there's external seating areas in some malls and areas as well as internal. Commercial design problems, you go into Unit 4, and Unit 4, the fourth quarter, is really the only quarter that goes into civil engineering in any depth at all. And it doesn't go in very deeply, but it does give kids an opportunity to use a level in a transit and to do some survey work, to do some presentations to show how they would develop a site. So you could take the projects that they have developed across the first 3 quarters perhaps and expand those to do a team commercial design challenge that would pull together the civil engineering and site layout and management elements that would support a larger scale project. Those are the 4 units that would be a part of the course, each again 9 weeks in length. Does anyone have any questions about any of the units or the structure of the class or standards or background or anything?
You said the standards are embedded, so would this class fulfill like a science or a math or a whatever requirement?
That's at the district's discretion, I understand. So if the district chooses to, based on the math standards that are embedded and we demonstrate that the students are meeting those standards, then I believe it's at the district's discretion whether or not they offer a science or a math credit to accompany a course like this. So it would be up to us to demonstrate through data, accumulate data across the course of the year to show that the students that take this class have indeed met the standards that they would meet in a different class, whether it be a math or a science classroom, and then ask the board or ask the district for permission to assign a credit.
Just as a follow-up to that, Mr. Holmberg, don't we have to, as the students would register for the class, don't we have to tell them what standards it will meet ahead of time? And do we know what that decision is right now for recommendation?
As far as whether it gets a math or a science credit, that we don't know at this point.
So, or is it just an elective?
At this point, it would be an elective. Before it could be more than that, we would have to demonstrate that it has the rigor and does indeed address the math or the science standards necessary to receive that kind of a credit.
And just as since I've got the board, I'll keep it for a moment. Can a student take 1 or 2, or is it designed to be 2 has to follow?
2 has to follow 1,
so that
you have the skills necessary to be successful at 2.
Okay.
I imagine a student could take just 1, which would be comparable to taking a semester-length introduction to architecture class. and then they would be truncated at the point where they finished the residential design. You don't need to become a licensed architect to do residential design. That isn't necessary. You need an architectural degree to go into commercial or to design schools or malls or hotels or anything beyond that. A student may discover after the first semester that that really that's backing up just a step. The whole point of classes like this, or the Introduction to Engineering and Design class, is to help students discover whether they have aptitudes that align with their interests. Sometimes kids will take a class because they're curious, and then maybe halfway through decide, this isn't for me. So it's possible that some students after the first semester may choose to just forego completing the second quarter, the second semester of the curriculum. And it may be possible that that they will motivate their friends to take the class in the future and bring others into the program. So you really don't know right off the bat how it's going to go, but I'm optimistic based on past experiences with teaching architecture across the last 30 years that roughly 2/3 of the students I had in Introduction to Architecture classes, between a half and 2/3, would take the second level classes. And about half of that number would take an Architecture 3 class. It's been kind of what I have observed over the years. So I think that we have enough students in our high school, roughly 2,000, maybe not quite 2,000, but isn't it somewhere around there? 2,200. Okay. It's even more than that. Okay. All right, I thought we were like 18 or something. I have a picture. But anyway, I'm sure we have enough students in there to pull a section together of 30, 36 kids to make something like this run. I'm sure there's enough interest in the community. And as far as the demographics of the classes are concerned, in traditional industrial technology classes, they're predominantly male. The drafting and design and engineering classes that I've taught have been anywhere from 100% to men to only having 1 or 2 girls in there. Now that's changing. The Introduction to Engineering and Design class that I have with 34 kids in there has 6 girls in it. I mean, that's progress. On the architecture classes that I've taught, though, the gender balance has been more even. There have been 50-50, and sometimes a few more women than men, young women interested in architecture as career paths than young men. So it brings a little more demographic balance to the industrial technology program to have an offering that attracts the other gender. When they're in the same facilities and they have a chance to see what other people are doing in the same classroom, sometimes it motivates students that take an architecture class to take an engineering class, or vice versa, because they see the projects and the software that other students are working with. So it can help us to broaden and the program's appeal across the school district.
So by splitting into two distinct semester units, does that allow us the flexibility to offer, say, the first section, both first semester and second semester of the school year, and vice versa?
It would depend.
We could offer.
That's all student driven.
Yes.
So that could happen that way, yes.
Because I know we've talked about trying to get students their choices, and maybe we can't get them architecture in semester 1, but we can get them architecture 1 in semester 2.
And that is certainly an option. I have students that have just joined me in the Introduction to Engineering and Design class at the beginning of this second quarter that took the first quarter last year, but that's the only quarter that they took, and now they've entered in at the beginning of the second quarter to pick up where they left off. There's only one doing that right now, but last year was the first year, the only year that we'd had the Introduction to Engineering and Design. But we'll try and accommodate kids. That's the bottom line. We want this to be as flexible as possible so that we can serve a broader number of students.
Okay, I'll give somebody else a chance to speak now.
Real quick question. Does this Rivet, a software,
Yes.
contain any design constraints or simulation properties to follow up on Tom's question, to let these kids understand the forces? Or
it is
better?
parametric, but I don't believe you can put loads on the trusses and see whether or not they collapse.
Okay.
I think some of that is still mathematical. You still have to look at structure of materials and size of materials and look at tables and charts to determine what the effect of snow might be or what the load might be on different pitches based on the material that you've got in there, because we have a wealth of information that shows us what we can use for spans on floor joists based on how tall or how wide joists are, what the span can be, so that we can support live and dead loads. We've got all that information available to us to help us assess whether or not the materials that they're using in their roofs or their floors or their walls or whatever are going to be able to stand up compared to existing structures. But it is parametric. By that I mean you can, if you design a structure, you draw the walls in, you can go in and change the dimension and the walls move to accommodate you. So if you design your house and you discover that you wish the kitchen had been a little bit bigger, well then you can just change a number and the whole house will shift accordingly. And you can't do that on paper. That's huge. Okay, then the software is evolving. This program has only been available for maybe 4 years or so. And as it evolves, it is becoming more user-friendly all the time and developing additional capabilities. Like software like Pro Engineer or Inventor. Those you can put a load or a stress on something and you can watch it deflect. Okay? And I imagine that they'll do the same thing. They're the same company, Autodesk Corporation, makes the Inventor program. I imagine they will incorporate those things into putting loads on the roof or loads on a bridge or loads on steps or stairs to see how it might deform or twist or how it might deflect in the wind. I believe that they'll probably go that direction. It's just logical.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions?
With regards to training and costs, that all can be accomplished summertime prior
Yes.
to?
No, there might even have been another one about this. Here, let me go back here. Oh, no, too far. Costs, yes. There's no cost for the software because we already have it in the house. We purchase a suite of software called the Design Academy. We lease it. And with that software package, Revit is included. There's other software packages in there that we aren't currently using. So there's no additional cost for the software. We already have the computers in-house, the ones that we use for the introduction to engineering and design. So there's no cost for software, no cost for hardware, and they require that all of their trainers go through a 2-week boot camp like we did for the introduction to engineering and design. And their goal is to see whether or not the people that are teaching this curriculum are capable of delivering it correctly. They want a minimum level of competency in the instructors that go out to deliver the curriculum, so that should the students fail, it won't be it won't be their fault. It'll be the fault of the instructor. You know, they want to make sure that they aren't putting their seal on someone that is capable of pulling it off. So I would have to, or someone would have to go to a 2-week workshop. I went to St. Cloud for the Introduction to Engineering and Design class, but only because I was just tired in July. And I missed the one that was offered at the University of Minnesota. But there are workshops right here at the U of M so that you could do it more affordably. No need for transportation or lodging expenses in addition to it.
One of the other training components too, or at least the cost of that, we do have that Kern Family Foundation grant that does cover for training, professional development purposes for our staff.
Hardware-wise, we're okay with?
Our computers that we have, those are our new computers. They are Project Lethal Way compliant, and we'll be able to run this software. And as Mr. Ulrich has up here, our current systems are up to the task.
They're 1 year old, and that, you know how technology is. You know. So next year they can do it, and I'm sure that they'll be able to do it for 3 years. Beyond that, computers are kind of boat anchors anyway. You know, the operating systems will evolve. Everything about them will evolve, and then they'll have higher demands. So for now and for at least 3 years, I think they can handle it.
Thank you.
The hardware doesn't change. It's the software that drives the hardware.
All the hardware changes too. We have quad-core processors in our computers that we have in the CAD lab right now, and that's technology that only developed 2 years ago.
But if you still wanted to run DOS, you could easily get
Well,
right? Right?
No, thank you.
Any other questions? And this comes with the full recommendation of the curriculum committee.
The curriculum committee was presented this about a month ago.
Yes.
And it comes with our full support.
Any other comments?
I'm very excited to see this first option because for several reasons. One, it takes us a step further into engineering and our goal of bringing more engineering opportunities for our well here at the high school. But also the gender equity piece of this and offering courses that are going to be more appealing to our females that are at our high school, and giving them opportunities before they leave us to experiment and see if those are opportunities that are good for them and something they might look further into. So thank you for your leadership on this.
Certainly.
I'm looking forward to having this be part of our curriculum in 2012.
Thank you, everybody. If you do have questions, if any, or comments, or suggestions, or advice, or whatever, then you can go to the district website, and my teacher page is on Prior Lake High School or Twin Oaks Middle School, either way. And if you have questions or comments or anything at any point in time, just shoot me an email, and I'll find an answer for you.
I have one more
Thank you.
question. Yes. You said that you're going to do some data collecting, find out what requirements it could fulfill. How soon do you think you'll be able to get back to us on
At
that?
the end of next year, we would have data to show whether or not the students had gained enough information in the course of the class to measure up or compare with students who were taking a more traditional approach to learning these concepts in a math or a science curriculum.
And 1 year worth of data you think would be
Well,
enough?
it's a start.
be a
We've only
start.
have
Okay.
36 kids at that point in time.
Okay.
Hopefully, 30 to 36 kids. But the kids that have taken the architecture and engineering classes tend to be pretty good kids, pretty smart kids, pretty sharp kids. So I don't think that, I think the data will be good. We'll make whatever we want from it, but we can't really give you too much data without offering multiple sections. And I think we're going to find that there's enough interest to offer one or two. So it'll take a year or two to get enough information, to get enough data collected for you to make a really solid decision, but we can certainly give you enough information by this time next year that you'd have an idea whether or not kids were meeting the standards that we're embedded in there.
Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion to approve the addition of the civil engineering and architecture course.
So moved.
By Rich,
Second.
by Tom. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next, we have the student registration and sixth period day presentation. And Mr. Holmberg.
Good evening. Again, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Groover. I'm here tonight with Mr. Kuznetsov and Mr. Lund to present with you kind of a sixth period day overview and more specifically presentation on student registration and schedules looking forward to the 2012-2013 school year. Last year we made the decision to move toward the sixth period day, and as you all are aware, students are currently in classes. And one of the things that we're doing this year is we're evaluating that transition. And one of the first things we looked at was really the scheduling and registration process going into this year. And so after a brief introduction, our purpose here is really to bring forward to you what were our learnings, what were our key insights, but also recommendations as we prepare for the 2012-2013 school year when it comes to student registration, so that it is a more easier process, and it also addresses some of the challenges we identified this first time around for the current school year. In order to do this, we did convene a working committee toward the end of October to look at the registration process, and there were a couple of challenges that immediately came to the top. One was inequity of class sizes, which I briefly talked about in the class size report. We had multiple instances at the secondary level where we had classes in the low 20s and also similar classes in the high 30s. And so we recognized that there was some imbalance there. The other challenge was really student choice and elective conflicts. In many circumstances, some students did not get their choices for electives or struggled to get those electives into their schedule. And so as a committee recommending or looking at those types of challenges, they came together to see what is it that we can currently do in order to ease and also mitigate some of those challenges moving forward and looking forward to the following year. So the recommendations that are that are presented to you tonight, they have been presented to staff and departments at the secondary levels at both middle schools and high school for review and feedback. They were presented to the District Curriculum Advisory Committee last Tuesday, and that also leads to Tom Anderson's recommendation at the beginning of the board meeting to have this be a first read and action come forward this evening. And ultimately, the recommendation is here for you this evening for consideration and action. This was our timeline, beginning part of November to staff, the curriculum advisory on the 22nd, and we're bridging the November 28th and December 12th presentations to tonight, where you'll hear it and also seek action on it tonight. Part of the reason for that, curriculum advisory reviewed the recommendations, but also recognized and asked questions about the registration process. There is a considerable amount of work that goes into creating a registration guide and preparing for student registration, that really the recommendations could be heard this evening and also take action on that. So pending board action, the recommendations will be implemented for the 12-13 student registration schedule process. This was our committee from the middle school and the high school. We also had just technology membership on it, as well as myself. Largely, these are folks that are the hands-on individuals with creating the student schedules. You will notice a difference, and I want to bring that out in front. At the middle school, it was counselors, administration. At the high school, it was counselors. It did include 2 teachers and administration, and there was some discussion about that as far as the teacher participation in this process. One of the things that was unique to the high school is that the way their schedule was set up, some courses were in semesters, and some courses were in quarters. And that was one of the major reasons why some of the conflicts at the high school were occurring, is that when you have semester-long courses and trying to pair them with quarter courses, there were a variety of conflicts for students that came as a result of that. So from the high school perspective, we did bring teachers in, one from the communications department that offered semester courses, as well as the specialty teacher, Deb Johnson, FACS, to represent the quarter perspective or the elective teacher perspective on that. The middle school, all of their classes are offered in quarters. And so largely their solutions and recommendations do not pertain to changing quarters and semesters or how curriculum is being delivered. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Kuznetsov to talk about the middle school recommendations.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Gruber, good evening. I'll be sharing with you details of the middle school recommendations for 2012-13 school year. The challenges on the left-hand side that we identified were in 6th grade. As you know, we were offering an exploratory world language class, and data that we had in front of us when students registered, it was very low enrollment, low interest. At the same time, about 20 to 30% of the students were forced into the course they did not choose, and that class was very difficult to staff due to the fact that we had to find a German teacher for a little bit, and a French teacher for a little bit, and a Spanish teacher for a little bit, and for world history or world cultures teacher for a little bit as well. It included, we had to be compliant with our Department of Education, with various variances, and just created a lot of complications. And I'll go to the proposed solution for that one. The solution that we have is not to offer exploratory world language course in 6th grade and have all students to enter Spanish A or introductory course in Spanish if they are qualified to take the class, and that means they passed MCA math and reading test. If not, they are in math or reading support classes during that time. Some of the references, historical references, why Spanish? As you know, you may remember that during the time when we had an IB offering at Twin Oaks Middle School, Spanish was chosen as a primary language by community to offer at that time. And then we decided last year to check in again with the community. Okay, now 3 or 4 years later after we started the IB program, what language would be language of preference?
And as you can see, in 2010, community said 74% families said Spanish, followed by Chinese, 12%. Nobody asked me, I would say Russian, but that's my personal preference. Community is saying 74% Spanish. What's not actually here in the data that I would like to share with you, what about some other languages? What's the current interest? I'll tell you, last 3 years, for example, German, out of close to 600 8th grade students, only 18 students said we would like to learn German class in 8th grade, followed by 22 or 24 students combined from both buildings French, and then majority said we would like to have Spanish. And actually that number reflects students' interest in the last 3 years for both German and French classes. So that's a recommendation for exploratory world language. The other challenge we had is the 7th grade, every other day in the year-long combined physical education health class. And the limitation of licensure was that not every teacher is licensed to teach Phy Ed and health. We prefer to have teachers who have both licenses, and we don't. Some can teach only Phy Ed, some can teach only health. So when I say the way it's set up right now, it is 4 days of Phy Ed and 1 day of health all year long. So the only teacher who can teach that class is a teacher that's duly licensed in Phy Ed and health. And it created difficulty in scheduling that during the day, when we can offer it, and who can teach that class. So our proposal is to separate Phy Ed and health. So the student's going to have 2 quarters of Phy Ed, and then they're going to have 2 quarters of health. So that would allow us for 2 different teachers to teach that class. That would add the flexibility where that class can be offered during the day and help us to grant some of the more choices of students in their elective classes. And every other day course was another challenge that we had. Because it's every other day, if I'm teaching something on day 1, I have to teach another class on day 2 as a teacher. And so that would create odd-even conflict. So we need to have even number of sections of every other day classes. And if we don't, the teacher has nothing to teach on the opposite day. And that just creates all sorts of conflicts in the schedule. So what we need to maintain, the best of our ability, is the equal number of every other day courses. And what we'll do is we'll require some minimal additional staffing, which we can't really comment on what it's going to be right now. It's pending registration. We might have a number of students that register for every other day classes that create even number of sections, then we're in good shape. But what it is, it's one section. If a one section is odd, we just need to add one more to make it even. So we're not talking about a huge amount of money in that case. Okay, so that's a summary of the middle school recommendations.
Do you want to have questions on that, Eric? I have one quick question.
Looking to these guys if they want questions now, or
You know, we can certainly proceed through, and then we can come back and address questions too.
Yeah.
Good evening. High school recommendations. The challenges. 6th period day committee, keeping student choice alive, was an overriding principle of the 6th period day. So what we did when we came into this year is we did 2 things. We offered our elective classes in quarters, giving the students the maximum benefit they could get to access elective classes. We kept our core classes in semester format, trying to keep a consistency of teachers through your core class. So if you're in a semester class, you have a semester English class, you have one teacher first semester, one teacher second semester. All looked good on paper. We knew we would run into some problems. We ran into some huge problems with class imbalances. We have classes as high as 43, with another section, same teacher offering the same class with 24 kids in it. And no matter how we balanced it, no matter how we worked at it, we physically couldn't get them down, just because you're running 2 completely different systems. And I could go into a real lot of detail on how that works out, but no matter how we ran the numbers, it was physically impossible. literally the counselors and Mr. Palicki went through all 2,300 students' schedules to get them to work. Normally, for freshmen, 98% of their schedules work out and you don't have to touch them. This year we had to touch about 98% of the schedules. So difficulty balancing class session, difficulty scheduling students into the first top choice for electives. We had students list 7 and 8 electives, and we still couldn't get them some of those. I mean, it was physically impossible to fit it into their schedule because the semester classes were all locked in. If I had communications first semester, first hour, that was all year. Math would be second hour. Science would be third hour. I'm missing one. And then fourth hour, we had social studies. Well, there's 4 hours locked in, which means you've got to try to fit everything else into 2 hours. And if you're a freshman, and you got health in there and FIAD, it was just impossible. Even with our fixes, and I'll go to those second, we still never have guaranteed students all of their elective choices. That's just impossible. But when he lists 8 choices and you can't get them, and our students have been very gracious about the classes we're in. And the other, it's all part of the high conflict rate with students. If you take a single section course like an AP Environmental Science, that's going to tie up your second hour all year long. The way we're scheduling now, well, if that's where one of your other AP classes goes, or if that's where you had a single section Project Lead the Way class that you wanted to take, they both conflicted out and you couldn't get them. If we changed all quarter classes, we really feel we can do 2 things. We can maximize the flexibility in the schedule. The student's not locked in there all first quarter. You take a class like a history class, we may offer 14 sections. So you could take it first quarter, first hour, and second quarter, maybe you take it third hour. And allowing you in that second quarter, first hour to get an elective class in there. Right now you cannot. Going to all quarters will allow that to happen. We still won't guarantee everybody gets everything they want. But, I would think we could get to a student's maybe third choice and be okay and not, hit 8 and still have nothing. Students would more likely get their top elective choices. We had a lot of elective choices. We set our limit at 24. We dropped classes below 24. You will see in our registration manual right now we have some classes 18. They started out with 30. But by the time you conflict out in this schedule, we couldn't get them in. Class size will be more balanced. Our class size across the board on the teachers' classes is really right at that 34, 35 range. But with the unbalanced, again, you go 42 down to 24. It's just that, and it makes it, when you get into a lab class like our physics, if you go into Mr. Knapp's physics class with 43 in there, we don't have space in the room for it. We have space for 34, 35 every hour. We even ran into huge desk problems because that room, even though it's 1 hour, has to have 43 desks in it. And then increased ability to make schedule change sooner in a quarter system if a student's not placed appropriately. Right now, if we have a student locked into, let's just pick an honors class, and the student is locked in there, and the counselor and the teacher feels that the student is really misplaced in that class and needs to come out at quarter time, we don't have the ability to take them out. We do. We're going to make that, but it makes it really rough getting them in another class, where if we break at quarters, that break is naturally there, we can pull you out and we can bed you in another one, which we're going to do instead of telling a student to tough it out, you're misplaced, or the other way. A student's in a class that's way too easy for them. They need to be challenged. We need to move them out and up. One of the things I will say in working with this, the biggest downside to this is we could have students transitioning to more teachers or more different teachers, which is horrible English, but throughout a year than they would under the traditional semester. The counselors, myself, feel that we can really minimize that. I'm not talking 100% where the teacher would have the same communications all first semester. They may get a different one second semester. What we want to try to avoid is them having a different communications teacher each quarter. We can't guarantee that 100%. A lot of that will depend on the student's choice. They may give up an elective to keep that consistency of the teacher, or they may choose to take that elective and say, you know what, I'm going to do that. But work with the computer system, work with the counselors, especially when you have 12 sections of a class. What we're looking at doing, let's say I just, Mr. Lund has a first hour communications class. Mr. Lund also may have a third hour communications class. So Mr. Stika may have Mr. Lund first hour, first quarter. Second quarter, he may have Mr. Lund third hour. The idea is not to keep Mr. Stika in the same class, but try to keep Mr. Stika with the same teacher as we bounce around. And there's ways we can engineer that. Thank you for letting me use your name, Chris. And that's essentially what we're looking at for the high school.
You know, the third and final part of the recommendations coming forward, and you heard both principals kind of allude to this a couple of different times, but we've also started looking at the technology side of student scheduling. I mean, for the most part, our current school district student information system is Skyward, and that is our main system where we have all our student data, and it is the system or software to be used for scheduling for middle and high school students. Looking at the current as well as the most recent past, there have been quite a few challenges, should we say, when it comes to utilizing Skyward in a manner that schedules students effectively, appropriately, and quickly. Through this process, it was actually quite interesting to hear how much hands-on scheduling our counselors and our principals do trying to get students into the right classes or try to get kids into classes to make their schedule work. We need to have a better product, or we need to look at our current product and identify what we need to do with it in order to utilize it to maximum potential for the 2012-13 student schedule process. And we're looking at a couple of different things. We're looking at our current functionality. Are there components of Skyward? Because we don't have all components to it. It's like many things. You buy certain parts of it and you add on different modules. We're looking at our current functionality and the modules that we currently have in Skyward, and we need to identify which ones are going to help us or ease the use of scheduling. All school districts use some sort of student information system, whether it's Skyward, Infinite Campus, you name it, to schedule students, and schedule students in a non-hands-on manner by our staff. And so we're looking at the modules that we have and what we need to have in order to make scheduling a more efficient and, I guess, easier process for our staff involved. The second part we're looking at is the training component. It's been several years. We've had some new faces around the table with our counselors, administrators, and also our building secretaries. We also have to look at the training components or training opportunities available with Skyward so that if we have those modules or if we need to secure different modules in order to use Skyward for scheduling, then we need to know how to effectively use them. And so, interestingly enough, this was a large part of our conversation when this group got together. When we have a technology tool, it should be able to assist us in a way that makes scheduling easier. And as I mentioned, that has not been the case in our more recent future with student scheduling. So, just our key points. As what Sasha was saying too, we will continue to monitor our student enrollment projections for 2012-13 relative to our staffing recommendations, and that's like in past years, that will come towards the spring as we prepare for the school year. We will be looking at our student information system, looking at short-term recommendations as well as long-term recommendations. As part of a second aspect to the 6-period day, this spring I will convene another working committee to start looking at curriculum and assessment revisions in preparation for 2012 and 13, and then looking at into the spring and summer, start looking at all aspects of the 6-period day. What are we learning? What are we finding? What's the practicality of it? And what are the things that we need to look at moving forward so that as we work with the 6-period day, we're using it, we're offering the curriculum, we're providing that student choice that came to the committee as a high-value item, and making sure that we can schedule kids appropriately so that they can get those classes. So the results and recommendations of those committees will also go through curriculum advisory and ultimately to the board if there's any recommendation for a change or tweak. So with that, we have our time for discussion or more specific questions that you may have on the middle school or high school recommendations that are coming before you tonight.
Sasha, under the middle school portion, am I reading this wrong? Are all students will be required to enroll in Spanish 1?
Majority of students who did not pass their MCA math or reading test will not be.
But does that not then create more inflexibility in the schedule?
Actually, it would create a better flexibility or more flexibility in the schedule because in the schedule terms, we call it singleton. You know, when you don't have as many kids registered, there's only enough for one class, and that creates a lot of conflict when there is one. And then when the more kids registered, the more sections we have, then there is a better choice to offer those sections throughout the day. So then that student, if cannot take it period 1, there's a class like this period 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And then maybe more than one, period 1, period 2, 3, 4. If there's only one section, we can only offer at one time, at one period, and that's where conflicts start happening.
Well, what I was getting at is, correct me if I'm wrong, but currently they have two choices currently for electives in 6th grade. Is that correct?
Right. For in language, yes.
Currently.
In world language, yes, that's correct.
If we take one of those electives away,
right,
then if someone chooses band or choir, they have no option then for any of the electives in 6th grade, correct?
No. Band and choir are aligned with physical education class, so they're not connected to world language. So they have their own spot in the schedule. So that, yeah, a world language is every other day class with geography.
Okay.
Okay.
That's right.
So they're not attached to. Okay.
Every other day was the key.
Yeah.
Thanks. I thought we were going to limit, or with that, it was one less choice.
Okay.
It's not. It's
I
every other day.
understand.
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
Just to touch on my question touches on a comment you just made.
Sure.
We've got an issue today where students that take a foreign or take band and choir in a foreign language then have to take prime time throughout the year in their prime or health through their prime time hour, correct?
No, that's 8th grade only.
That's 8th grade only.
Right, and that's only for students who do choose world language and music class.
And have we been able to find a workaround for that as we look through the tweaks for the?
Yep, and that does not create any conflicts for us. It's pretty flexible because there are so many primetime sections throughout the day. Even though there's only one group of students that take in that class, but it can be offered during different hours because all kids have prime time at the same time, and there are many sections are happening. So that we were able to work that out. That's not a conflict in 8th grade. But then it does not create a conflict in 6th grade. Everyone takes health for a quarter, and they take Phy-Ed for a full year every other day.
Any other questions?
Well, Jeff, I don't know if you mentioned it, but in December you're bringing representatives in from Skyward,
Yes.
right, to help
That is
consult?
correct. We're going to be working with our Skyward is our current vendor. We're going to be working with them to express really our concerns and what our challenges are with scheduling. They are used in other districts. Other districts use Skyward to schedule their students quite efficiently. And so that is part of our discussion. In the past, that just hasn't, I guess, it has not been looked at least to the level that we need to look at it. So that is what we're going to be doing. As part of this, recommendation pending board approval, we will start the registration process and getting all the foundational material set for that, and that will be part of it. Having Skyward come in, identifying these concerns, but also earlier you saw that committee of individuals. That's the same individuals that we will be bringing back together again to work with Skyward through the scheduling process.
Yes, Tom.
At the curriculum committee, when this was brought up, Mr. Palicki was there, and he talked about working, most of the summer? I believe getting the schedule set because there's so much hands-on with this, and then hopefully the updates with Skyward or whatever. We're hoping that the students will know their next year's schedule by the end of the current school year, so they'll know before the summer break what their schedule will be, which I think will be a lot of help and also free up Mr. Palicki to do other duties.
Just to give you a glimpse, when I ran Skyward, another district, when I was building master schedules, another district, I could literally put in the students' names, and I would, run a couple runs, and it would place 98% of the freshmen without a conflict. I'd run in the 85 to 88% sophomores. My senior was my lowest group. If I could get the seniors in 60, 65% without conflicts, because seniors have so many electives. Right now, even before this, we're conflicting out about 70% of our students, which means every one of those schedules have to be hand entered. Every student's schedule has to be physically touched, worked out, and then the whole master board. What we should be doing is throwing the names in and letting the computer schedule it. What Mr. Plicky is currently doing, and I don't mean to speak for the high school, he is hand building and placing every class himself. The only thing he's using the schedule to is to load the students into it. And yeah, it takes him all summer long. So, and like Mr. Anderson said, other schools are able to do it, and the teachers have the schedules, and the students have pretty much the schedules. I mean, there's some stuff goes on over the summer, but I would say 90% of your schedule is set in stone before you ever go home for the summer.
I have just a couple more questions. Sasha?
Yes.
It seems like with FIAD and at the high school, we're moving to a quarter-based program. You're moving from a year-long to a semester-based program. Would we get more flexibility if we more aligned with the high school and went to a quarter-based program for more classes than semester-based?
Right. But actually, we analyzed everything that's on the board right now that we need to change without making major changes to our curriculum. Right now, semester classes that we have, they are every other day semester classes. And that's aligned with a year-long every other day classes. And then as a district, we made a commitment last year to offer classes like physical education, classes like Spanish or other languages, to have it over the long period of time, even though it's every other day, to have it for a year or for a semester rather than every day just for a quarter. So that's one of the things that we're going to start looking at this coming up spring, because it's really about curriculum and how effectively it works. It might not offer a flexibility in the schedule in the future. This is what we can do right now without changing major changes in the curriculum and offerings.
Exactly. The every other day component did come up, but that was also a recommendation of the sixth period day committee, is to have those every other day classes. And so when we get to the spring, we will be looking at the every other day class concept. Is it working as well as we intended? Is it achieving what we originally thought or what the committee originally thought would happen by spreading that out over the course of the year? And subsequently we'll have a recommendation if we're going to continue, or if we're going to tweak, or if we're going to revise those concepts moving forward.
I also, this is just a side comment, a personal experience. Last Tuesday, a family came in because they were interested to transfer to the middle school, sixth graders. This family is leaving Aspen Academy. They're not as satisfied, and they would like to be part of Prior Lake Savage School District, and they said, do you offer Spanish in sixth grade? And for them, it was like a deciding factor. They already like Prior Lake, but they're kind of, and I said, yes, we do. It's for the full year, every other day. And I said, okay, where's the registration papers? And said, yeah, we have a registration center, so we help them along, but that's just one story.
Did we take? Sorry.
Hey, no, just to kind of recap and perhaps segue here is that part of the approval, or part of the request tonight is you would hear this as a first read, but also take action tonight on the recommendations that were presented.
The reason for doing a first read would be, in a lot of cases, to get public input. Curriculum committee felt like this was more operational than it really was. Looking for that parental input. I'm looking, I guess, for some direction why we're changing that direction. Why we felt that input was maybe important then and maybe not.
Well, for the sixth period day, there was, we had to definitely had a lot of input. This, and we knew going into it there were going to be some tweaks and whatnot. This is just, we just discussed that this is just one of the tweaks that we're going to have to make going forward. We're not changing the concept of a sixth period day. We're just tweaking how it's delivered. And frankly, this is going to be, I feel, much better received by the students because they will be able to get their first, second, third choice as opposed to their 10th, 11th, or 12th, or whatever it turns out to be. So I think it's much better for the students.
The only thing I would add is that by making the decision tonight, we give administration and our counselors enough time to be able to get this put together so that registration can happen on time and in an efficient manner.
All right, well, we changed the agenda to move this to an action item, so I'll take a motion to approve the recommendations.
I'll make that
presented
motion.
By Tom, second.
I will second it.
By Rich. Any other additional comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the fall activities report. Mr. Rodino.
Good evening. How are we doing today?
Good evening.
Good.
All right. I'm going to present fall activities. We had an exciting fall. We're moving right into winter. So I'm just going to go through and give you some statistics on what happened in the fall, talk a little bit about the survey and the results, and then some of the actions that we've been taking over the last year or so to get to where we are. Adaptive soccer, 10-2 on the season. They were section champions. On an added note to that, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, we had a group of students that actually went up to our adapted soccer game up in Chanhassen. 25 students, about, Chris, 20 to 25 students go up to cheer them on. One of the greatest experiences that those kids could ever embark on. And then we had about 10 students that actually traveled to Stillwater to root them on in the state tournament, which was really fun to see. Football, 8-4, tied for second in the conference, section champions, first time ever in Prior Lake history. For those of you that went to the Dome, that was quite an experience. Pre-sale, I sold about 2,700 tickets out of my office. The Metrodome sold out of their 8,000 tickets that they had allotted, and the majority of the people in the stands were Prior Lake fans. That was the largest quarterfinal gate that they have ever had in state high school league history. So that's all because of Prior Lake. Boys soccer, 11-6, fifth in the conference, section semifinals. They lost to Jefferson 3-0. Another note of satisfaction was in the quarterfinal game against Kennedy. We had 227 students in attendance. The boys won in overtime. And after the game, our students came down and cheered with the boys soccer team that I believe that we just won. It was a pretty exceptional thing, and it was just fun to see. That's what high school sports is about, and it's pretty awesome to see that. Girls soccer, 7-2, tied for seventh in the conference. Lost to Burnsville in the semifinals, 2-0. Burnsville ended up playing in the state championship game. They lost to Wayzata in that, but we played well. Young team, but played well on the field, and I think the future's quite bright for the girls soccer team. It's the first time in my 4 years that we've won a section game in both boys and girls. Tennis, 19-1, conference champions. Lost a 4-3 heartbreaker to go to state to Rosemont. Our number 2 doubles actually had 6 match points that unfortunately they could not overcome, getting that final point in the second set. But we are returning all but 2 seniors for the tennis team. So that's doing quite well. Swimming and diving, section champions, conference champions, section true team champions, 9th place in state, which is the highest place ever for our girls swim team. And then our 200 medley relay took 3rd in the state, behind Edina and Minnetonka, I believe, or Edina and Eden Prairie. But it was that was the first race of the state finals, and a pretty exciting race, and great to see our girls right up there on the top of the stands. Cross country girls, 3rd in conference, section runner-up. This is their 9th year in a row that they have qualified for state. Coach Dan Sod, Kelly Ryder, and Michelle Perkins are doing an amazing job with that program. That's a pretty amazing feat when you think about it. There are 16 teams that race in the section every year. Top 2 go on and qualify for state, so we've been in the top 2 for the last 9 years. And then they finished up 13th in state. I know they were disappointed with that, but that program just reloads every year. Boys cross country, 9th in conference. Boys cross country, they just need to keep chugging along. We'll get there. Not quite on par with the girls, but we need to get the training going, and we need to get the dedication in that program. And once we get that, you'll see that move on too. Volleyball, 10 and 16, 7th in conference, won their opening round section game against Mankato West, and then lost to Chanhassen. Volleyball is the 2nd year they've had a losing record, but before that they had 2 20-win seasons in a row. So they're young, and they're looking to rebuild as well. Fall musical, Footloose. Hopefully you went out and saw that. That was an absolutely incredible experience. Dr. Gruber and I were there on Thursday night, which happened to be the smallest crowd. Friday and Saturday were standing room only crowds, and then Sunday actually had which is our matinee, had a crowd of almost 400. So that's pretty amazing. 1870 total. Last year our musical was How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Had 895 as our total attendance. So we doubled that easily and over. Marching band. For those of you that did attend the football games this year, our marching band has, in my 4 years, come such a long way. And not only in the number of participants, but in the, and I don't even know what it's called, but they march. And they march often, and they move, and it's fun to see. And Keith and Kristen are doing an amazing job with that. And our choir, right on par with that, always incredible choir. And we have the holiday concert coming up here shortly. So make sure you get out and hear that. Surveys. We were down on survey responses this year. Christy helped me rewrite many of the survey questions to maybe get a little more input. Some of the comments on the surveys are, nobody reads these anyway. I would like to say that not only do I read the surveys, but they are shared with the coaches within the evaluation process. And it's important input to my office to try to make things better. So, when people watch this on video stream, I want them to hear that very specifically. We talked about some of these things last spring, and I did see actually the parent responses were better than some of the student responses, and that was good to see. Knowledge of the coach advisor up about 5%. Program working toward excellence up 11%, and you can see that with how well our fall sports actually did. Off-season program, which is a key to success, it was up 11%. Quality role model down about 5%, which worries me a little. I should put on there as the AD a quality role model to see what I get on those. Season was enjoyable, up about 4%. Emphasis on strategy and fundamentals up 6%, and professional manner up 6%. So those are good to see from the parent responses as they watch our coaches work with their kids, and excited to see that. Student responses, we were down 5, and actually I asked Martha to resend this out because we only had 20 responses the first time, and then I got another 45 the second time. Pushing toward excellence, 85% said that our school is pushing toward excellence, while 73% said that last year. However, and this may go toward a couple of the sports that responded heavily. The season was rewarding. We only had 46% that responded that it was actually a rewarding season, where we had about 70 last year. Teammates respected me, 90%. So the kids felt like they were respected by their teammates in there, and I thought that was pretty good. Play for the same staff, that's down about 9% there, and I think that has to do with a couple specific programs as well. And then, some kids didn't think it was as enjoyable as it was. So it's eye-opening to see that, are we being more successful on the field and on the court? Yes, but yet some kids aren't enjoying it as much. And that is eye-opening. And yet when we give out the surveys, we do break it down per sport. So the coaches and I can see it per sport, and we can address things specifically with that. I do want to talk about the culture of Prior Lake. 4 years ago when I came here, the culture was kind of so-so. I look at the culture now, and it's exciting. The kids are excited. Kids are participating in the dress-up days. Students are going out and supporting each other. And, I think you can look to your right and your left and look at Chris Dika as one of the people that's ahead of that. Chris has done an absolutely amazing job with the student council on being interactive with the entire student body and making everybody feel like a part of Prior Lake. We talk so much about how we're a big school now, and even though Chairperson Shimmick always says, I can't believe we're that big. We are that big, but yet with the student council getting out there, it still makes us feel like everyone's a part of that community. And I think we saw that when we were at the football game at the Metrodome. And beyond that, with kids supporting the soccer team, going out to adapted soccer. We had a group of students come out twice to the swim team's events, and it was so fun. They wore their little frog things, and they had their floaties and their life jackets on. And it's goofy, but it's fun to watch. And kids are supportive of each other. Other things that we're doing, the football team started a Live and Right program a couple years ago, and that kind of coincided with, we saw some problems with our violations. And so Matt started the Live and Right program, and kids actually sign up for that. And the football captains met throughout the year. It was more than just the captains, wasn't it, Chris? It was a whole leadership group that met throughout the year and talked about character and integrity and responsibility. And that helps change that culture. Soccer did that last year. Mike Shabusky started that last year, and Julie Lundquist is going to start that actually next week this year with the girls program. The volleyball had sisters. Mike Dean was telling me about how a kid who didn't even play volleyball past her freshman year came back. She was a graduate and still talked about her sisters and the sister program that they have. And then I have SAC meetings, and I took that name from a long time ago. It's the Student Activity Advisory Council. We meet every other Friday, and that's with all the captains and leaders of every single group. We have between 50 and 70 kids that meet every other Friday morning, and we talk about leadership and what it means to lead and to be a positive influence and culture. And then I do want to add, too, that Randy Geister and a couple of other people and I are working with the Positive Coaching Alliance with PLAY. They had a meeting, their first meeting with the winter coaches and parents last week, and had 124 people that attended that and talked about those same things. And I just put up their pursuing victory with honor as a Laker in our gym. And it's something that we're pushing for and truly making a K-12 program out of PLAY. And I know Stacy and the soccer club is working on that and making it a K-12 program. And then Joe Pankratz, our boys hockey coach, has also been involved with mites through the high school with the hockey program as well. And he actually had a separate meeting with all the players, squirts through high school, to talk about character. So we're really moving in the right direction on continuing to change that culture and making it a positive place for everybody. Any questions?
Can you comment on at one point there's some officials that made it a point commenting and making comments to the coach about how respectful the players were earlier this season? In football, there's some officials that.
Yeah, and
I don't.
And you know what? I couldn't tell you specifically. We've had a number of instances because what officials do is we rate the officials and then they rate us as a school. And one of the comments was that he had a pleasure working the Prior Lake game and how respectful our players were and the coaches were, and it was acknowledging to Coach Gegenheimer, how, apple doesn't fall from the tree there, and just a thanks to that.
Any other questions? Well, I'll let you close it. I just got to say, having gone to 5-6 sports a week through the fall, that it really was, and a successful season on all counts. And every time I went to an activity, I just need to reiterate, the student participation was phenomenal. Whether we were in Chanhassen, I know the Jefferson students at soccer were a little upset because our kids were extremely motivated, but it was fun. They made it fun to be a Prior Lake fan. I just want to commend all of our students, our participants, and those that supported the school. Chris, they were absolutely terrific. It's probably the best fall from a culture enthusiasm standpoint that I can ever remember.
I concur. Congratulations, Chris. Your council and all the hard work that they put into really changing that culture, moving it up, stepping it up a notch. Also, congratulations to you, Mr. Athletic Director of the Year of Prior Lake Savage Area School, our one and only. We have come a long way in the last 4 years, and your leadership and commitment to excellence is certainly paying off for our students and our families and our coaches too. And everyone works hard. There isn't one of those different categories that doesn't work hard. Working together as a team is really making a difference for our students and the success of they're experiencing as they move forward. So I thought your survey results were telling, probably for you more so than for us, and that you know where those pockets might be, but that they're saying that the satisfaction is there, the excellence is there, and it's getting better. So good work.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the student council report. Chris.
A lot of what Mr. Rodin just said is a lot what I was going to say tonight. So I'll just be brief with this. First, I'll talk about the student council. This year we have a very young student council, a lot of rookies we like to call them, but they're very involved. They come to all the meetings. We've been recognized by many teachers this year as one of the most organized and most creative student councils that they have seen throughout their time at Prior Lake. Coming up, we have Sadie's, which is when the girls ask the guys to the dance. And our Sadie's theme is Sadie's, with 80s being our theme. That was one of our students who came up with that. I thought it was pretty creative. It's going to be fun. It's on Saturday, December 3rd. Recently, we had the student forum where we go around to the classrooms and we ask students what they think are some problems that are happening in the school. And then we meet with them for a period or two during the day, and they talk about what they think is going on in the school. Some of our concerns, or some of their concerns, were why do they need IDs to use the computer? Why aren't the passing times long enough? Why can't we use the restroom during classroom and during our lunch? And I think a lot of those questions were addressed by student council and by the assistant principals who also attended those meetings. Some of the student life, these are also some concerns that some of my peers have had, is that the parking lot the day that it was raining, it was very slippery. It's always very busy coming in and out of school. And I was actually addressed by one of the students that some of the students haven't been obeying all the stop sign rules. And I know some days there are staff members out there directing traffic because they don't want people to get injured or people to get into accidents. Lunch is going well. I know my lunch, I can always find a table. I always know that there's going to be room to sit at the table. The lunch line is smooth. I think everything's going well with lunch. The 6 period days, somebody told me that they really like it, that they think the school day goes by much faster because there's only 6 periods, not 7. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but time flies when you're having fun. Like Mr. Rodin said, sports are great right now. Fall went very well, and winter sports are starting this week. I think basketball has a scrimmage on Thursday. Hockey starts Thursday. I know for baseball we started captain's practice already this winter, and we're going to be going all the way through the winter and then into spring. School spirit, and again, many teachers have commented on how great of spirit we have as a school. I met with some students that graduated last year, and they told me that they were jealous of our class and the classes below us, that we had such great spirit and that they didn't have it as much. So I thought that was a very good compliment towards us and towards Mr. Odin and the athletics. I also got an email from one of the broadcasters at KARE 11 saying that was one of the biggest crowds at the Metrodome that he's ever seen for a non-championship game. And I thought that was cool because, when I looked up there were so many people there to support all of the football players and all of the coaches that have worked so hard through the years at Prior Lake to be successful. I think we owe all the students thanks, and we owe Mr. Odin and Mr. Lund and all the other staff just a congratulations on a good first quarter. Are there any questions or comments that you guys have that I could address?
Just kind of wondering, I know you guys start in the summertime planning out your year, and you set a number of goals. As student council, what are your key goals and your progress towards them?
We do set goals in the summer, and one of the goals is to be recognized as an outstanding student council. And I believe there's only 5 councils in the state that gets that award. And I think the last 6 years, Prior Lake has gotten it. So that's one of our goals. We need about 200 hours of community service as a council, and we actually pushed that number up this year to 300 hours because we feel that our kids are very deserving, and we should be able to pay back to the community and to other communities around us. So yeah, our goals are being met. There's still a lot to be done though, so we're excited to look forward to it.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris is coming back. I think one of the funniest things and maybe the loudest cheer was in the Metrodome when they had to open up the entire section for us because we'd already allotted. Next, we have second reading of our policies, and we'll start with 809.
You have seen these policies, three policies for our first reading. They're back tonight for action. The first one is 809, parking and traffic regulations. It has to do with making sure their parking lots are safe for our students and efficient in their use. You see some minor adjustments to this policy, and certainly make any questions that you might have on that.
Any comments following the first reading? Any changes? Okay. Take the motion to approve. What do you want? Yeah, I'll take the motion to approve policy 809 as presented in the second reading. By Stacy, second. By Lee. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Next is kindergarten early entrance.
This is policy 509.1, kindergarten early entrance, and Mr. Holmberg will speak to just taking it to other groups for readings instead of different elementary groups, kindergarten group.
As mentioned at the last board meeting, this is a policy that does have significant revision to it, simply because we needed to articulate this a little bit more, and it was a while since we looked at this policy. So it has gone through curriculum advisory as well as the elementary principal group, and looking at the policy set forth in providing guidance for prospective kindergartners looking for early entrance. So from the first reading to the second reading, there were no additional revisions to this policy before you this evening.
Okay. Any questions or comments on kindergarten early release? I know this generated quite a bit of discussion last meeting. Okay, seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve policy 509.1.
I'll make the motion.
By Lee, second. By Stacy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. And then we have 616, school district system accountability.
And again, I'll defer to Mr. Holmberg for 616.
This policy, you've read it for the first time at the last meeting. From the first meeting, or from the first read to the second read, we've removed the definition C, profiles of learning, since that no longer applies. But ultimately, the school district system accountability is focused around our curriculum advisory committee, having recommendations or processes go through that group as far as the graduation standards and academic standards for students. So, for your approval.
Any questions? Yes.
Just one addition on, under definitions B, can you remove the phrase profile of learning content standards?
Pardon?
Under the definitions B, graduation standards?
Oh,
where it says course requirements and profile of learning content standards.
We would remove the profile of learning
Content standards.
content standards in
Yeah, that was just something I think.
letter B.
Correct.
So it has been removed because it wasn't on my copy?
No,
No,
it's
it
not
has not.
removed, and I
So-
guess I would make a recommendation that
It
it
is removed
be.
from mine. Crossed out.
Content, or
It's in
letter
B.
B,
Under B.
but in
Oh,
letter
B.
B,
Yeah.
it references profile of learning again. So we would remove that reference.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve 616 with revision identified by Rich.
I'll make that motion.
By Rich, second. By Stacy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the administrative reports. Dr. Drew.
Yes, before I talk about things that are happening within the district, there's one event that happened a week ago Saturday that was really quite special. It was the first annual military symposium, and Chair Pratt joined me, and board member Rich Wolf and his wife were there. It was really a beautiful day of celebrating our military across our community. Mayor Mike Meiser gave the introduction. We also had Congressman John Klein give an introduction and welcome to all of those in attendance. Breakout sessions throughout the day. The attendance kind of ebbed and flowed throughout the day, but it was really very, very special day for our will be repeated again next year. It was held at Twin Oaks, and was coordinated with the help of community education and Leanne Weinreich, our director, who took it under her leadership to help that group get organized, get facilities, so they could make this event happen. And Mr. Wolf has been part of that committee and has helped guide them also. So for our first endeavor, I thought it was really quite amazing. So I was very proud to be a part of our Prior Lake Savage area schools and being able to support that endeavor on the 18th. Coming back here, we've ended our first quarter. As you can see, we're already planning for next year. We're planning for spring sports, so that Chris can play baseball again, right? And we're getting ready for winter sports. Everything happens at the same time. Just as our fifth graders are going off to Wolf Ridge and enjoying their learning time out there, there are different opportunities happening throughout our district on an almost everyday basis. Since our last report, we've ended quarter one and began quarter two, and made some adjustments as per our additional staffing at our last meeting, and those additions you saw tonight come forward as part of the new personnel for the most part. So we're making some tweaks as we go through this first year with our 6-period day. We're trying really hard to address those needs as we see them. If they are easy fixes, to bring down those class sizes, offer opportunities to our students, and make sure we're providing the most rigorous opportunities there for students throughout the school year. But also, we're looking for this next year, what is it going to bring for us? So we've made some recommendations tonight that you've adopted and will be put into place as we begin 2012-13 with the 6-period day. Some of this is our own learning, but a lot of it is working with two disparate systems and trying to put them together, our Skyward system as well with our 6-period day and our new learning, and also trying to make sure that we're providing the right kinds of class sizes, which has been a high priority for this board and for the administration as we move into next year. So all of those things are beginning to coalesce here together as we look to January 2012. So I'm right now finishing up this week, tomorrow and Wednesday. Tomorrow I'll be at high school, and Wednesday I'll be at Twin Oaks. Now at the end of my first round of tours in the buildings, visiting with staff. The questions at the high school tomorrow will be about the 6-period day. How is it going? What are the unexpected and unintended results? What's happening with students? How is it going for staff? How is the implementation of new technologies and new science curriculum, math curriculums? And what is it that we need to know as we plan for this coming year in 2012-13? And then on Wednesday, I'll go back to the second middle school. I've been at Hidden Oaks, and I'll go to Twin Oaks on Wednesday and talk about their transitions, what they're learning, what they're finding, what are some of those unintended consequences. How can we mitigate some of those as we move forward? So those visits have been really helpful in understanding the realities that are frontline, if you will, is being as they go through this first year of a big change in our system, and we will be looking at that information and gathering that data as we look to next year. So everything is going along course and going very well.
Any other administrative reports? Any board reports? Just have to say that certified committee has been conferred on Wednesday. That's, and I think the committee is meeting on one of these coming Thursdays.
Yeah.
If there's no other business that needs to come before the board, we have the data retreat December 5th. We have our regular school board meeting on December 12th, which is also our truth and taxation meeting date as well. All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Come on, somebody.
So moved. Second.
Second. Finally, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Nobody wanted to leave? Nobody wanted to leave?
We're having too much fun.
You want to say something like always?
Good job.